Good evening, Danvers. My name is Mark Zubrick, and welcome to the Topics of the Town. Today we have John Toomey, and then we have Matthew Duggan. So we're
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. This is our new beginning of the year again. Another story.
Another one under our belt.
What we want to do is, as you've heard me say before, is that transparency and independent reporting is our motto. The projects of the town, the topics of the town news reporting is by Danvers reporters for Danvers residents. We always report only the truth, sometimes with our opinion included. So bear with us. First thing that we want to address is the last Tuesday's selectmen's meeting. So Matthew, can you just go through real quick on that?
Sure, just real quick, just a brief overview of what occurred at the meeting. So one of the big things was the vaping. The couple of town departments came in and gave some presentations concerning the vaping, specifically with school-age children. So there was the Board of Health that kind of spoke for a little bit about cessation programs and how to kind of get counseling, because we all know that with smoking, typically it starts with teenagers and then it becomes almost like a lifelong addiction. So kind of nip that early on. And the school department gave a presentation along with Danvers Cares, kind of this similar material, trying to identify people at risk and trying to, rather than punish them, like by suspending them from school, try to get them into some type of counseling or some kind of program that kind of will give them an alternative. So not punishment, but kind of just redirect their behavior. And then last was the police department came in, the resource officer at the high school gave a presentation. He had a board with different types of products that the kids are using.
That the parents should be looking out for
Right.
when they notice it, that there's vaping going on,
Yeah.
correct? That was a very good display.
Yeah, and he showed that you can disguise the vaping with like soda cans and with different
Hoodies.
Yeah. So that was very interesting. It's always one of those things where adults kind of find out about things they otherwise wouldn't know. But I think one of the things was, again, just not suspending them and punishing them because they are children, and to kind of just educate them and kind of curb that behavior. And then really the only other, the big topic at the selectmen's meeting on Tuesday was a review of the warrant articles for the February 10th special town meeting. And one is with, one item was the transfer or land swap at Endicott Park. Right now the town owns the parking lot for Glen Magna, and Glen Magna, or the Historical Society, owns a piece of the field. So there's going to be a kind of a legal swap that's being managed by the state. And there will also be some restrictions that no development will be allowed.
On either side.
Yeah, for either in the parking lot, there won't be any building, so it'll basically stay the way it is now.
Right.
It's just like a legal thing that didn't occur back in the 60s when the property was purchased.
It's the deed boundaries that had to be set to where their land is appropriately assigned to the properties.
Yeah, right now it doesn't really make sense. And I think they tried to do it back in the 80s, and for whatever reason they weren't able to do that. And then the other warrant article everyone's getting more familiar with is the overlay districts for the Maple Street and High Street corridors. Kind of just went through that again, and the land use department or the planning department just gave another brief overview one of the big things is with the 40R. So they've, I don't know if it was a kind of a concerted effort, but the town and the state decided that Danvers wasn't really eligible for the 40R program. So fortunately, from my perspective, that's been withdrawn because 40R is very restrictive, and you give up a lot of local control.
Right. Thank you. The most interesting thing that happened at the selectmen's meeting, I mean, I think town hall doesn't think I watch it on television, but there is a presentation that was being observed. Is the most interesting thing was that Bill Clark and David Mills both were objecting to the fact that density, parking, and traffic were not really considered in this amendment to the zoning. So at the end, the most interesting thing is that there was a lot of discussion from Bill Clark, and I even commented on his presentation and his objections to the zoning last last show we had. But this time, it was David Mills was also included. So I am very supportive of the selectmen that are objecting to this, because this zoning will definitely change the character of our downtown and our entrance that we have already given away to the hot wat developments that are being, that have been considered in the past, and they want to move this thing all along the pathway of High and Maple and High Street. So one of the things that 40R became an issue when in October 28th, there was a letter received from the state that basically said, you don't have enough development that's going to qualify for this type of zoning. And the letter itself is very clearly defines that there's only 7 parcels that are identified in this proposal to the state, that only 7 parcels will be even considered to be 40R. So the State Department of Housing and Community Development basically denied the application, and the application is still in their hands, but it can be revived as they go along. So I think we need to be very careful of what does this zoning proposal will present to the public, because what I understand, and this is 190 pages long, it's a replication of the hot wat proposal, which was very congested, and it was not well defined of how far it can go.
Well, I think that's the major problem, is that, to me, when they say overall overlay district, that's what they're talking about. You could practically throw anything in there.
Right.
To me, again, they're trying to attract developers.
Right.
They're not particularly concerned with what kind of developer, as long as they're willing to spend some money and build something.
And there's very little developable land. No, I can't pronounce that twice. But the thing is that even the state defined that only 7 parcels along Maple and High Street are even considered for this kind of a development. So what we're doing is we're changing the character of our downtown totally with the zoning, because like you said, anything goes, because that's what they want. But the thing is, does the town really want that? We have a new management team in Town Hall. We have a new planning department in Town Hall. And they are basically from outside of Danvers. And this is not Lexington, this is Danvers.
Well, if you look at the overall view of the zoning, to me anyway, it strikes me as attract business, attract population, and become a city. Big city, big
That's right.
taxes.
And this is, but we do not have a transportation magnet that would allow that to happen, because everybody's talking about a walkable and small units. There's not enough room to build those units. And one thing is, we do not have any transportation avenue to getting our people from downtown to either Beverly or Salem. And now they're talking about a shuttle service that we're going to be implementing to go to the Beverly Depot.
Yes, but that was interesting. The news the other night was on a comment from, I believe it was Worcester, where the transportation company, a bus company, is considering a conversation with the state, and they're going to discuss turning themselves more or less over to the state and becoming a municipal bus transportation
Right.
organization. And I couldn't help but think, wow, that's what Danvers is talking about.
Well, Newburyport is doing that with their transportation program that they have for Amesbury, Newburyport. And the thing is that is what attracts people. We do not have any economic development or industrial or even commercial in our town. So we have to start thinking about, how do we get business to come into town?
Well, right now, people live here, not work here.
Right. There you go. I used to commute an hour and a half each way.
Oh.
So let's move on. I think we'll hit this item again, but what I like to just introduce quickly, as we did last year, is we have a tax situation in our town where the selectmen, in their wisdom, have increased our taxes by 3.2%. But they forgot to tell everybody that the assessments were double on some of the units in our town. And even the Board of Selectmen, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, was complaining about it last Tuesday, because there is no rhyme or reason what they did with the rate increases.
Well, their purpose is to raise money.
Absolutely, and the greed was very visible. So the thing is, I have brought a application for abatement, and we introduced this last year. And the application for abatement is a two-page instrument that everyone who is concerned about the valuation and the amount of dollars in taxes that they pay, that they should apply for an abatement from the town hall assessor's office, because that's where it all begins. And the problem is that there are excuses being given already by our assessors department that only the multifamily houses were doubled in price.
It looked
And-
like that. Yeah.
And it looked very serious. But the thing is that even you and I, in a single family, we got hit last 2 or 3 years, $300, $400 a year, or a year increases. So they have caught up with the single families. Now they're going after the 2 families and 3 families. So multifamilies have been hit very hard. But I suggest that if you are concerned about your assessment, especially the assessment, go for an application for abatement. And it's for real property and personal property taxes. So that's all I'm going to say. The assessor's office is wide open. They're very receptive to discuss it. And everybody should take advantage of that, because what I was told is that last year only 60 people applied for an abatement. But the one thing that they don't tell you is that the commercial and industrial have their attorneys handle that in court. So they don't apply for an abatement such as a resident would. they go to court and get their assessments, reduced to a reasonable amount.
I think
So
there's a deadline for that as well. I think before the end of January.
January 1 through February 3 this year, because
Yes.
January 31st is on a Saturday.
So the clock is ticking.
So the clock is ticking. Get going to the assessor's office, ask for an abatement. There is some homework that you have to do, but it needs to be done. What I like to do, and this is what we've been planning, but we're almost halfway through, but what I like to do is the year in review. Basically, Topics of the Town has been very active in the last 12 months and the months before that. The one quick one that I like to present for January 2019 is that we, as members of DCAT, have presented certain proposals to the Board of Directors. And I know you've been involved in that, John. Matthew, you have not. But John Zavaglia and I, in the past, approached the Board of Directors for some relief on some of this programming language that they have in their legalese that basically prevent a lot of people from going forward with their programming. And we've made some proposals, and the proposals have been discussed by us on the show and with the Board of Directors, but very little response from the DCAT Board of Directors. We need to put the pressure on again. In February or in January, we also discussed the special town meeting regarding the Smith Grammar School. The Smith Grammar School, according to what the town manager said in the last meeting, is going forward and it is being constructed. Many of the contracts have been awarded and are within budget. However, I know that when we were building the high school, we had certain people at the meetings, and they hold their meetings on Friday morning at 8 o'clock. I mean, everybody else has got to go to work, but no, the town employees and the town school department are available at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I think we need to open that up a little bit more and invite more of the residents, and the town manager should probably ask a couple of residents to join that committee, because that is a very important committee that really understands what's going on. And we have some very experienced people in town that have done large projects, and they know construction, they know what bids are and how they're supposed to be handled.
Well, we need to get more people, more average people out there involved in town government.
Absolutely. And the thing is that the people that are appointed to these committees are basically town employees, whether they're school teachers or school administrators or town employees, which is okay. But the townspeople need to be involved.
They're too busy complaining on Facebook to come to meetings.
Well, they're going to complain more when the taxes come out and
Well,
get
that's not
higher.
town hall's fault. That's town meeting. They're the ones that spend the money.
Oh, now we are into town meeting. Town meeting.
It's true. They're the ones that vote on spending the
Town
money.
meeting only votes for what they get, and they don't develop it. It's the town manager
could have a
and
we
the
could have a
selectmen
whole
who
meeting
come
just
up with the
about that.
budget.
Well, let me just wrap up the special town meeting from last year. And one of the things that I've noted on here, and we have 21 pages worth of this stuff,
Yes.
because our programming has been very extensive. We do it every 2 months, every 2 weeks. The statement that I made at town meeting, and I'm a town meeting member, I did not vote for this, but let me be clear. They want to save you money by raising your taxes. How much is enough? There are other projects to do in this town. That was my statement at town meeting. and everybody just looked at me like deer with the headlights on. They didn't know what's going on. Presentation on the topics of the town continued. We went in February. We did a presentation on February 12th in regard to special that we conducted for the service clubs in Danvers. Danvers Rotary Club, Danvers Kiwanis Club, Danvers Lions Club, Danvers Touchdown Club. The Rotary decided not to attend, which is fine, but we had a very interesting presentation from the other clubs. Touchdown Club is one of the ones that I used to participate in when I was on the board. But Rotary was the key one that I wanted to get involved with the business people. Now it's shrunk to the level of 40 people, I think. That's all there are in Rotary. Kiwanis is in the same situation. In March, we talked about the town elections, the town non-elections. Basically, ballots for each precinct were available. The selectmen and school committee were uncontested in 2019.
And how small a turnout
And
we had.
it was the smallest turnout, I think, in history, of recent history. I'm not going to go back into the 40s, but I wasn't around then.
People are too busy complaining on Facebook to go to vote.
Well, the thing is that people have to get involved, and then that's what you've been
It's
preaching.
a lot of
Joe.
work.
A lot of work. It is a lot of work, a lot of time spent.
Yeah.
But the problem is don't complain if you don't get involved.
By the time you find out what's going to happen, you've already paid for it in your taxes.
That's
Yeah.
right. It shows up in your mailbox.
Well, yes. This election season back in March of 2019, or May, has much voter apathy and will have a small turnout. We predicted that on our show. The town meeting members' candidates will make up the interest. Even there are a lack of candidates and vacancies. There were vacancies left on town meeting.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, and I'll interject my own personal situation here. Town meeting has become a rubber stamp for anything the town hall and the finance committee wants. The finance committee doesn't represent the issues like we used to back in the 90s and 70s and 80s and 90s. We had finance committee that really went through every single line item on that budget. The problem is that now we have finance committee basically rubber stamping whatever the town hall wants, and the town hall is very aggressive in spending our money. Finance committee needs to step in and address some of these issues.
That's their role, right? Is to be kind of an interceptor to ensure that.
They're supposed to understand and know where the money is coming from and where is it being spent and whether we can afford it or not afford it. The town hall is telling the finance committee what they can afford.
I spent quite a bit of time on the finance committee, and it was very simple. You either dug in and got the information so that you knew what you were voting for, or you didn't.
Right.
And unfortunately, I get the impression today that they really don't know what's going on. They take a recommendation and they just pass on it.
Yeah.
I spent 5 years on the finance committee, and that's where I really came from when David Mills' father appointed me to that committee.
Oh.
And he was a gentleman. But he said, you know what? Finance committee is the strongest committee in this town because they have access to every record, every penny that's being spent, and they have the right to ask for information. I haven't seen anything from the current finance committee of what they're asking for or what they're looking at, or they just accept whatever the town hall gives them.
Sometimes they don't even ask questions.
No, none at all.
Yeah.
So it's a very important committee, and it is a very strong committee that can look into everything that's going on.
But it must do the research to get
Abs-
the facts.
Oh yeah, it's a part-time job. It's like 20 to 30 hours a week
Yeah.
that you have to spend with that.
Yeah, but I think the people that are appointed to it are known quantities where they're not going to be rabble-rousers and question. Maybe that's how you get selected for the finance committee.
Yes, well, you brought up a good point. They do have a tendency to accuse the people who ask questions. They're accusing them of being rabble rousers.
Well, I can join that club. I mean, that I have no problem doing that because at that time, whether you're a elected town meeting member or on the finance committee, you have more responsibility than even the selectmen. The selectmen are the figureheads
Yeah.
for the town.
It's more than just showing up.
That's right. So let's continue. Then we went into April 2019. Like we predicted, selectmen and school committee uncontested. Update of candidates for town meeting. There were vacancies left. They were not filled, so they had to have special caucus sessions. In May, end of May, we have the annual town meeting. $121 million budget that was presented by the Board of Selectmen, by the town manager to the Board of Selectmen, to the Finance Committee, to the town meeting, was approved at a vote of 120 to 1 in 15 minutes. Does that ring a bell? I mean, we can spend money faster than, the government can print it.
There's an important note there is, I think there were almost 30 town meeting members that did not attend.
That's right. That's
So-
another one.
So that's a pretty
We
high
have,
percentage.
currently, we have 144 town meeting members plus the 5 Board of Selectmen, 149 altogether. And the thing is that we have 18 town meeting members from each precinct. Now, why are we running for town meeting if we don't attend?
There's people that don't vote, there's not enough people for town meeting, and when they are elected to town meeting, they don't show up. And
Is
if
it-
they do show up, it's only once a year. You
That's
you
right.
never see them any other time.
So is it a resume builder?
I don't know.
Education budget at that town meeting, there was some debate on that one. Report on Danvers education budget controlled by the school committee. The remainder of the budget is hidden during the discussion. Now, what was discussed is that MCAS scores at the time were not up to snuff. The children in our education system are not challenged enough. And there was no defense for it from the school committee or from the school
And
administration.
There was Andrea Daly and Jack Billingsley, both provided substantial information
That's right.
on why we were failing, but they were dismissed, I think.
And
those-
during the years since the town meeting, all that has died. Why? Because nobody has any further interest in it. But the thing that I noticed from the budget hearing and budget debate at the town hall, the town meeting, the school budget right now, including all of the DPW, forestry, grounds, everybody, and the maintenance of the buildings is up to $75 million. 75 out of the 121 is devoted to the school system, and nobody's asking any questions.
That's over 40%, isn't it?
It's over 60%.
60%?
It's the other way
the
around,
other way
John.
around? Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what's reflected in that bill that you got in the mail
And
the
that's
other day.
and exactly. And this is the discussion that we had at the selectmen's meeting when they were setting the rates, is that this is the sandwich that we ate
Yeah.
in May, and now we have to pay for
the
it.
bill, yeah.
So what I think we need to do is, and I know I'm going to pursue it, is we need to cut back the budget. We need to control the budget. The town manager has to control the budget because this is not an unlimited amount of money that's available to the town hall.
Oh, I
So-
know, but the residents expect, high quality schools. They want their streets plowed to the pavement. They want excellent police and fire protection. But when the bill shows up for that, then they squawk. So if they didn't have that high quality of service, then I think they would be complaining about that as well.
Then there's a suggestion that's being thrown around by a lot of other people is that maybe we should have the rate setting hearing and the classification hearing before the town meeting, before the money is spent, because everybody at town meeting is sitting there and they just approve everything that comes along, 120 to 1.
It's just a number on a piece of paper. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything.
But the thing is, they don't know what the ramifications are. And I've started asking the question in regard to the water rate and electric rate and all that. So the thing is that we have to start asking the question because we, as town meeting members, are the legislative body that controls the budget, basically. And every time you turn around, oh, the town meeting approved it. Oh, the town meeting pushed it forward. Yeah.
It's like an anonymous group
That's
somewhere
right.
out.
June 2019, we're halfway through. Essex Tech Tour. That was a very interesting.
Yeah,
you
all
were not-
three of us did
Were
that.
you there?
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, that was a very pleasant experience.
That was as a result of the discussion about the costs that are being incurred by Danvers at the Essex Tech School, because that's becoming a $3 million, $2 million budget item on our nickel. So we went to Essex Tech, and I think we had a very pleasant and very instructive presentation by the superintendent. The superintendent was very open about it. She presented the whole program for the children that are attending it, and they're attending from something like 50-some different communities.
Yeah.
So it's Essex County originally, then it's Peabody is in there now. Peabody got in, back in 2000, I think, and that's being expanded. We have approximately 100 students, I believe. So it's a good program. Everybody raves about it, and when we did the walk around and the interview, I think that was presented to the public many different times. So maybe we'll even go there again. Maybe we
Well,
should.
I think the
this year.
superintendent, when she came to give a presentation in front of the finance committee, I believe last year, she was very articulate, much different than the previous superintendent. So it's very well run, and I know the cost per pupil is rather high.
It's not as high as you think, because what they include in their cost per pupil is the facilities cost, the building costs, and all of the maintenance and everything else that has to be included, because each and every town pays for their students. We don't even calculate that except at the end of the year when some people ask for it, because Diane Norris at one time used to do that for us, for the selectmen, itemize all of the school committee controlled costs, facilities costs, maintenance costs, supplies, and everything else that they provide to the schools. And that, in this case, in this year, was $75 million. The school committee controlled budget is only 43, and that's what everybody sees. But they don't see the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, the other story on June 27th, as you know, I have been attending the and filming the Municipal Light Board and the Water and Sewer Commissioners. Well, on June 27th, Water and Sewer Commissioners, they didn't, but the town manager did. The Water and Sewer Commissioners don't have any power. They're an advisory board for the town manager. So let's face it, the town manager raised the water rates by 15% in one shot. Now, there were a lot of questions raised on why did the water and water rate basically rise or rose so high. This was blamed on an accounting error that was 2 years old, 3 years old. But the accounting error occurred during the negotiations and the sale of the water department garage. There was $2.2 million at that time. And that's about the same amount that was in an accounting error. So that is, it's a question that has to be raised. And then they, raised another $475 million at the last, $475,000, excuse me. And then another $1.5 million that was adopted at town meeting. Again, rubber stamp. So nobody's asking the question, but while the restrictions will most likely continue this summer, watch out for a significant increase in your water and sewer bill in July. Water and sewer meeting at Two Borough Street was held on June 27th. I attended that. Oh, they brought all the big guns to make sure that that rate was going to be increased. The town manager was there. The town financial director was there just to make sure that it passes. This was a rigged number, and we're paying for it. So that's my words, not anybody else's. I'll take the blame for that. Back in April, I know that recent articles in regard to the Beverly Airport have been circulating in the newspaper. I did sue the city of Beverly, the Beverly Airport Commission, the manager of the airport, for obstruction of access to public meetings and public facilities. Luckily, in December, I finally got my relief and the penalty that the city of Beverly had to pay. But the thing is that over the years, Danvers residents were not represented properly or did not ask the questions that had to be raised. We had tree cuttings back in 2000 or 1999 that just went along. Nobody asked any questions, but they did cut all the trees down because they needed them for access to the airport. So I own that Beverly Airport settlement, and I am going back to the airport next week. So we'll see how that goes.
We should go with you.
Well,
Sounds like I want to be part of the welcoming back committee.
You're going to be on the. You're welcome to come with me. I need a cameraman.
Yeah, I'd like to go.
Yeah,
I'd like
there
to
you
see
go.
what's
Maybe
going on over there.
It's at 6 o'clock on Monday night, and it's at the west side of the Beverly Airport. So, even currently, this last July, the Department of Public Utilities, at the request of petitioners that have been gathered and signatures have been gathered, are investigating the Municipal Light Board, the electric company, because they have been spending money that is not the town's money, but the electric company revenue that they have collected. And if you look at what has been collected and what has been spent without authorization, is basically $25 million.
So there's a legal distinction between the two entities?
You know what? Everything is so convoluted,
Intermingled.
We do pay the municipal light company pays a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes of about $780,000 to $800,000 a year. That was negotiated back in 1997. Now, the thing is that the municipal light company is operated by the DPW. It's supposed to be operated by the town manager, but there's a conflict in there. Currently, in 2019, the electric, again, diverted another $4.1 million to the retirement fund while planning a rate increase of 11%. They want to increase our rates as of January of this year. That adds up to roughly $25 million that has been diverted from the revenue that's available.
So the revenue should only be paying for the delivery of the service.
Maintenance
There's
of
not
the
a
facilities.
profit-oriented-
That's right.
For the cost of running the unit.
That's right. And we all we are is a retailer of wholesale electricity. We buy electricity on the network. We pay for the transportation of that electricity to our town and to our residents. And we have gone into all kinds of crazy meter programs, smart meters, that are being replaced now because of warranty issues.
So we got those during the Recovery Act, right? The
That's
American Recovery
There
Act.
was
or whatever?
$7 million worth of meters that we acquired as part of a grant, but we had to match it. And at the same time, we went out to the water department
And we
to
have
replace
those,
those as well.
So isn't there cost savings associated with those meters?
Not if they're not working right and
Yeah.
they're not
Well, if it's
recording.
under warranty, because that's only like around 10 years ago, right? Less than 10 years ago.
It was less than that. I think it's 7 years.
So I remember we used to have to send employees around to every house, so that was an expense.
And they claimed at that time that that was inaccurate. Well, these are less accurate. So, in September, the electric company, the DPU, continues the investigation of the Municipal Light Board. The ratepayers are finally being supported by this investigation. Response from the town municipal light lacking facts and details. The town manager attacked the petitioners and my attempt to bring this matter to the DPU. He felt this was frivolous. $25 million is not frivolous. So, the other story that we had in September, Peter Kushnierik. We went out and filmed that intersection and the traffic issues. You know what? That died. Nobody's talking about it. The selectmen were going to take it under advisement or send it to the town manager. Peter hasn't heard anything.
This is the
The Liberty Street.
Liberty and 62.
Intersection
Correct.
128.
Yeah.
And
That's been an issue for 20 years now.
so the person you mentioned, he lives up on the upper end of Liberty, and he wants
Yes.
to make a left-hand turn lane there.
Well, he wants, yes. And
yeah,
there's
that's
no
had
signal.
DTAC, I think. That went to.
You know what? This was done in September. What takes them so long?
It's a state-controlled. I don't think the town has control over lights at that.
That town
intersection.
has influence with the
Yeah.
DPW of state of
That's
Massachusetts.
going to be. That's just continued to be a mess.
Well, take a look at the goats. The goats were an issue. That was another story that we had back in October, I believe, or November. And the thing is that 900 people signed a petition to the town selectmen asking for relief for that particular family. And even Bill Clark, in his wisdom, offered to use his property as a habitat for the goats. And the town selectman and the town manager refused to put it on the town warrant, this special town meeting. Same thing happened on the naming of buildings. Naming of buildings was initiated back in November, I believe, and there was no action out of this. There is no policy. There has never been a policy. I think the Recreation Department at one time did some naming of certain buildings, and they wanted to have something formalized. The same thing is happening with the access to the Toomey room at Town Hall. There is no written policy of how we can access that room and use that room as a public meeting place. The other items that I had on here, and I'm going to skip a few because the interesting story we already talked about is the tax classification hearing. What a embarrassing setting for a serious subject as taxes. They started off at 13%. They went down to 9.2% on the same meeting, and then the next morning it went down to 3.2%. However, they claimed that the 1.4 classification factor was voted on. I don't think the selectmen understood what was happening. They were asleep at the wheel.
Well, it's very complicated. Plus, a lot of the data or the metrics come in from DOR. So if we're provided with inaccurate data, it's going to skew what we see locally.
Matthew, you and I have been around long enough where a 12 or 13% increase in the tax rate is illogical.
Yeah. Well, it's also illegal.
Well, it's illogical, for one thing. I mean, what were they thinking of?
Maybe they thought we all had gotten raises at work.
What, did you get a raise?
No.
I didn't either. So, December, we're into, well, I'm not going to address the issue.
Seems like only last week that it was December.
That's right. It wasn't that long, was it? We have been talking about the zoning change for many, many shows now. The economic development and assistance that we've been talking about, it's non-existent. All they're talking about is this technically acceptable zoning that may increase the density and the traffic and no parking available. They want to use public parking lots as substitute for parking for the individuals.
You know, I think they're also looking at forcing developers to do linkage fees or some
I know.
type of fees. But you know, we can talk about these overlays. If we don't pass these, development will continue, and it'll happen through the ZBA because developers can say, if they don't get relief, they can go to the land court and get a judge to.
And that's already
override.
happening. Look at Maple Street.
Yeah.
The development that's going on, it looks acceptable. It's going up one story. Why not? Why not?
So that's the way it will continue.
Well, then what we need to do is we need to determine what do we want our downtown to look like.
Yeah. Well,
Because that is the main thoroughfare.
yeah, we
that's
want it to
coming
look
through.
like the streetscape to be
But
cohesive.
also, if we increase it, what is the overall
Impact.
effect that it's going to have on downtown plus the whole town?
Yeah, but it will continue to happen. I'm telling you, Danvers is open for business from a development perspective. There's money to be made, so we need to be trying to manage it. You know, the ZBA, and I'm not picking on the ZBA members, it's the overall process. The ZBA is a quasi-judicial board whose decisions are very difficult to to fight, because unless you have standing and agree as an aggrieved party, there's very little that you can do.
The problem is that this is being, like I said in 2017 when the special town meeting took place, this is being shoved down our throat, and we either like it or get out.
Well,
And a lot of people are talking about leaving town, specifically for the increases in taxes, for the increases in fees that we have right now, and then the congestion, traffic. There's no way of getting through downtown without stopping at every light along the way at least twice.
yeah, but it's like that throughout the metro region. I don't know where you're going to move to, Maine or something, but
It sounds pretty good.
yeah, well, there's issues up there as well.
All right. So what we want to do now is I want to invite all of our residents and concerned residents and town meeting members to a discussion similar to what we've just had. And could you show there's a press release that I'm placing into the newspapers. Topics of the Town News invites all Danvers residents to a Danvers Concerned Resident Forum. The forum will be held on January 23rd, 2020 at the Danvers Peabody Institute Library in the Standing Room, main floor entrance. The meeting is scheduled for 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. The forum will provide the residents and town meeting members an opportunity to discuss the issues and permit you to ask any questions related to our responsibilities and authority as elected town residents. Elected town residents means town meeting members and all the different committees that are out there. Please bring your questions and possibly answers so we can all share. And the thing is, what I think the show wants to do is open this up for open discussion, a forum where you can express your views, whether anybody likes it or not.
Well, this is your opportunity to get your opinion and your questions answered.
Correct. And the thing is that there are very few people. I'm looking at the zoning proposal, which is probably 150 to 190 pages. And the thing is summarized into 3 or 4 pages in the Warren article. And we need to discuss it. At the town planning board meetings, you and I have attended those. There's very little discussion because nobody wants to talk about it because they're afraid.
Well, there's nobody there.
Well, that's right. Nobody cares.
So this looks like there's going to be standing room only in the standing room.
Standing.
Yeah.
Standing.
Yep, standing
And I
room
hope-
only.
I
So
hope
plenty of people will show up.
I hope people show up. And what we need to do is we need to be able to express to each other what our concerns are. Now, the selectmen have raised their concerns, but one decided to vote for the proposal, and another one decided it was a 4-to-1 vote, surprisingly, which is great. But I think Bill Clark needs to stand up and say what his feeling is. He has that in the past, and we need to get that going again. So, welcome to the show on January 23rd. We'll have our show at 5 o'clock, and then we'll move on to the library at 6:30. Good night, Danvers.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Take care.